get the #1 contenders for what is rightfully ours, and that's the TNA World Tag Team titles. And we had to beat Inc., which is a great team, but they're not beer money. The Machine Guns, they need competition. You know, instead of fighting these other little guys that run around, they need men to fight against. They try to be tough because they're from Detroit and all this. I don't give a damn where they're from. When I punch them right in the mouth, they're gonna bleed like everybody else I punched in the mouth. I go around and kiss their girlfriend right in front of them. They're not gonna do nothing to me. I'll beat the out of them two boys.
We're not gonna let that happen. We're not gonna take from them, or we're not gonna take from anybody. Not only are we the best tag team, not only are we the smartest, we are the most brutal tag team in all of TNA and all of professional wrestling.
Me and Robert have been kind of held back. You know, at any time, we can end those little boys' careers. I mean, look at them. All they do is sit at home and they play video games. Me and Robert, we go out to bars, we sleep with women, we drink beer, we beat people up.
You talk about how people only see us in one light, that we're only super athletes, that we're only exhibition wrestlers. Man, we're the best, okay? And if these belts don't prove it, if our actions don't prove it, then you tell me what does and we'll do that too. We lose these belts, we get them back. We get knocked down, we get back up. That's how it works, and that's why we're the best, and we've been doing it for years. What's it gonna take to beat us? Are you talking about how we're not the biggest and we're not the fastest? We don't have to be, man. We have the most heart. We don't get paid to go out there in suits like beer money does, all right? We get paid to wrestle. We get paid to defend these titles all across the world. We're the best wrestlers in this company because of it.
Beer Money challenges the Motor City Machine Guns for the TNA World Tag Team Championship.
The Pro Wrestling Reflection presents Pro Wrestling's Greatest Rivalries. With your host, the Professor, Chalbello Veracruz, Tommy Wonder, and JB. We revisit the greatest grudge matches of all time.
Beer Money!
He's from the country. He's from the city. Watch your money in your alcohol. 'Cause when the tide rolls out and the ship's going down, you know you're gonna take a fall. He's from the country.
What's going on there, Reflectionites? What is going on there to the Vitoites, the Haminites, the PWCites, probationary PWCites, but always still, you know, it's been a week. It's been a couple of weeks right now, but, I have to remind Reflectionites if they're still on probation or not, but neither here nor there. What's going on to the Magnificent 70, Elite 8, the 99, the Terrific 10, the Essential 11? You know who you are. Phyllis Scott Wood, Donnie Day 1. I think Donnie Day 1, you're slipping, man. I think you're still on 2022. Now you're taking a break, and then you're going to say, you're going to slide into the DMs, no Diddy, PW, but you're going to slide into the DMs and say, Professor, I'm still on 2020 deuce. I'm not there yet, but I'm catching up. No, you're not, Donnie. You're doing what I told you you're going to do. It's going to be 2020 siete that you're going to catch up to all this stuff that happened in 2024. But I still love you, man. And what is going on to Jeff Lipton? What's going on to Greenpeace? What is going on to the SNX Express? Michael Davis, you know who you are. Christopher Paul Bruce Winman, Jan Kupana, you know who you are. I love to shout out all the Reflectionites out there. I love to shout out the Reflectionites that give me ideas to do the shows that I love to do here. But again, we took a couple weeks off because we had to charge the batteries, and now we're back. Better than ever. I feel like it's the new fall season, right, TW? It's the new fall season of the PWR podcast. But that means, we have a shelf life because, you can't do the fall season every time. sometimes people stop watching, people stop listening, and then we're gonna have to be like Walking Dead. We're gonna have that series finale. I don't want to do that. I'm just saying, but sometimes that just happens. Reality sets in. But anyway, we're not talking about the series finale of the PWR podcast. We're talking about this episode of the PWR podcast here at the Hami Media Group at Podbean.com, and we are doing a greatest rivalries edition of the PWR podcast. But before we get into that, I must introduce myself because I am vain like that. I must introduce myself because I get younger. Why the hell you keep moving, man? You do this every time I
display things.
I hit the record. See, for the audio Reflectionites, you be like, Professor, you're picturing what the professor is, going through when he's trying to do his spiel, when he's trying to do his gimmick. But then if you watch it on the video, if 8-Track Brown, the slowest motherfucker out there, uploads this, but of course, Big Rave uploads it on his Twitter, you can see not the frustration of the professor, but how professional the professor is. I have to keep going. I have to keep the show going, but I have to look to my right. Depends on what screen you look at. I have to look to my right. And this motherfucker here is moving everything. He's shaking around. He's doing Stevie Wonder. He's moving his neck, eating Cheetos and all this stuff. I gotta keep it professional for y'all. But anyway, I'm the charismatic one. I am the affluent one. I am the professional one, as I said before. Most importantly, I am the glorious one. The only objective man in this IWC, YWC, and probationary PWC punditry. The only objective man in this political hemisphere. I ain't voting for neither of those candidates for shit. I am the most objective man in this Twitterverse. The Professor Chabelle Cruz. And I'm not here alone. No. I'm here with my brother from another mother, the conservative liberal, the liberal conservative. And in a couple of weeks, he will be in the tri-state area. He will be in the Bombay area of New Jersey. He will be in the Bombay area of New York City because we are going to watch the Yankees kick ass at Yankee Stadium. And then this motherfucker is so rich. He's gonna do a New York tour. He's got booty calls at the Hilton. He's got booty calls at the Marriott. He's got booty calls at Airbnb. I didn't say if they were female, but somebody slid in his DMs, but neither here nor there. He already is making sure that his booty hole is already in check because he got his Diddy operations. He is your friend of mine. Woo! Well, not only he, Tommy Wonder, but he is the Detroit Rock City Universal Heavyweight Champion of the world. Woo! Tommy Wonder, how you doing, my friend?
Just lost the screw. I'm doing all right. You guys don't understand how modest the professor is. He is the only person on the earth to survive both Epstein Island and Puff Daddy parties. It's amazing. He doesn't give himself enough credit.
Well, it's like a horror movie. You have to escape.
And by the way, he says he's professional. If you're watching this video, you can see it looks like he's doing this damn podcast straight from the closet where he's hiding until Puff Daddy testifies. Who, by the way, just got taken into custody recently. So it's going to come out soon how many people were on P. Diddy Island, starting with you, Professor.
You realize that's going to be a very famous wing of the prison area. You got R. Kelly, and now you got Diddy. Who else is next? Who knows? But anyway, neither here nor there. But that's going to be a new episode of The Wire coming up, or Oz. What was that show? Was it Oz, the HBO prison series? Was it The Wire or the Oz? Oh, okay, so you're going to have the celebrity edition of the Oz with Diddy and R. Kelly in jails. But again, neither here nor there. But TW, it's been 2 weeks, so the batteries are recharged. So I thought it was apropos that we would do. Well, before we even talk about the episode, I must give myself and TW a little bit of a pat on the back. TW, when this episode drops this weekend, something actually monumental happened. And I like to give us a little bit of flowers for this. But the WWE has announced that once again, they're going to attempt to do Saturday night's main event. And it's going to start this coming December at the Nassau Coliseum. But you know why I'm giving you and I some flowers? Because it was almost like we even told the future. We did an episodic episode of a previous Saturday night's main event. We talked about it. We hindsighted it. We hypotheticaled it. We asked that question, can Saturday night's main event happen in 2024? And it's like Nick Khan is we already know Nick Khan's a Reflectionite. We already know Triple H is a Reflectionite. We already know Stephanie McMahon is a Reflectionite. And again, it feels like we have to give ourselves some flowers, TW. I want to say stranger to you and stranger to me, because I think it was the episodic episode of Saturday night's main event. We did it not so long ago. And it's just coincidence, TW, that now Saturday night's main event is coming back on NBC prime time. TW, what say you, for a quick minute or two? You told the future. We told the future here. It was almost like we're psychic about this.
See, sometimes that time machine goes both ways, like you. It'll go to the back and then come to the front.
That's wiping your ass. It has nothing about going both ways. But anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, I saw that today. It's funny you bring it up because I was like, whoa. Like, we were just talking about this shit. And now here we are. About to watch that shit. And of course, it's coming to where you guys are in New Jersey, but after I leave. Like, it can't be, why can't that shit come while I was on my way there? That's what I was hoping for.
Add it to your itinerary. But, a quick 30 seconds. Do you think it will be a success? Do you think after I'm not talking about the first episode, because of course, curiosity will hit people to watch it.
Will it lock longevity?
Yes. Do you think or not?
Well, I'll tell you what, man. It just seems like NXT's different. Like, I think, honestly, there are people that will turn into Saturday Night's main event who maybe don't watch Raw or SmackDown. Just because if the advertisement runs across, they're going to recognize WWE. They're going to recognize Saturday Night's main event. And I believe NBC, right? It's on NBC. So you're going to recognize all those three. So you're going to get some people that watch it, not just that night, but I think repeat, like anytime they see it. Whereas NXT, I don't think a lot of people recognize it like we do, right? Like we recognize shit. But so like them recently having to move their venue or whatever because the ticket sales or whatever the fuck just happened. I think if they called it WWE NXT, like it's WWE SmackDown, WWE Raw, I think they would probably get more people watching it. And moving it to CW might help because people have that without cable. Who the fuck doesn't have cable? Not cable, but, streaming. But I think it will work. I think for whatever reason, this is why I brought up the NXT part. Anything they do turns to fucking gold lately. Like, it's like, it don't matter if it's in fucking Scotland.
It's gold. It's gold now, but you know what? Sometimes oversaturation does.
Oh, right. You run that risk.
Eventually, things do turn, not for the worse, but it just turns into normalcy. But again, that's just that's a little bit of hindsight.
That thing is it like
it will be 8:00 prime time,
right?
Saturday night's main event.
It's not bumping Saturday Night Live like it used to be when we were kids. The reason I think it worked so much for us as kids, A, there was no fucking cable, at least not in the hood, and B, it was special. Now there's so many pay-per-views, there's so many whatever. Like a lot of these shows end up coming off like a fucking another episode of Monday Night Raw. So I guess, can it make it? Yes. Will it make it? It depends on how they do it. And I think the first one has to be big. I think there has to be a title change. I think it would be even like, I don't even see a problem with.
You're almost saying Cody versus Roman has to happen as the first.
And Cody has to lose. Cody has to lose. And I'm not saying Cody can't win his belt back.
You know what's funny, TW?
What?
This would have been if Roman still had the belt. See,
right?
The professor would have been right. Roman would have had the belt at December, and then everything you're talking about would have made sense for Cody to win it on Saturday night's main event, prime time. I had the vision. It's just people were too impatient. But again, neither here nor there. I was right. Y'all were wrong. And now y'all tired of Cody. So all you mark cards, go jump off a lake or whatever the case may be. But TW, we're not talking about Saturday night's main event. Let's get into the piece de resistance, the greatest rivalries edition of it. TW, it feels like every time I hear noise out of your basement, it feels like you're Tim Taylor and doing tool time right now. Should I know what you're building? Are you building something? Are you building a birdhouse? What the hell are you doing? You are building something. What the hell's wrong with you, man?
You didn't even know. You asked after I was done.
Oh Lord, Jesus Christ. But anyway, I'm not saying don't. Can you at least make it seem like you're trying not to do it outright, overtly? All that stuff.
This gives people a reason to tune in. Like, what's he doing next? Like, I hurried up and knocked down them Cheetos. I didn't want one of them AEW fans thinking I was one of them. Sitting in my basement eating Cheetos.
Josh and Christopher Paul Bruce Spoon are like, damn, Professor, you suffer so much because of TW. I cannot believe how you've lasted this long. But anyway, thank you guys. I love y'all too. But anyway, let's get into this greatest rivalries edition because I picked a doozy, TW. We have to go back to what was the number 2 company in North America back in the late 2000s. 2010, timeline, if you will, Reflectionites. We're going to do a tag team rivalries edition from TNA Impact Wrestling. And I picked 2, TW, could we say 2 of the top tag teams of that modern era time? Because I have to be honest, because, I'm the most objective man, TW, and I will not, say anything like I'm not going to be no WWE shield. I'm not going to troll that says WWE's tag team division was better than TNA's. No, it wasn't. I'm as objective can be. And you've got to admit, TW, that the TNA tag team division was stacked from let's say 2007 to maybe 2012 from that timeline when you had Beer Money, Motor City Machine Guns, Generation Me, Team 3D, LAX, and all British Invasion. Oh my God. You even had Matt Morgan and Abyss tag team, and it made sense for some strange reason. But anyway, I thought it was apropos to do one of the greatest rivalries in TNA history, and that is the Motor City Machine Guns and Beer Money Incorporated. So, TW, what say you? Because again, the landscape of wrestling during this time, tag team wrestling in WWE was not even a priority. This is why you had to find variety in let's say the Ring of Honors. You had to find variety in the TNAs. And it's kind of funny because that was the mission statement for AEW in 2019 by the Young Bucks themselves, that they said that tag team wrestling was going to be a priority. But now in 2024, they're throwing it in the pisser right now. They're following Vince McMahon's mantra. So what say you, TW? Because do you agree with that assessment, or are you going to be a homer for WWE saying that their tag team division was okay during the 2010s?
I am going to say that after the 80s, if you wanted tag team wrestling, you had to go somewhere other than WWE, because like even the 90s in the beginning, there was some WWE that was good. However, I believe Impact was good and probably the best until NXT. Once NXT started getting going, when you had it just seemed like the next big tag team was coming through NXT, whether it be the Street Profits, the FTR, Buddy Murphy and Wes, whatever the fuck, FTR,
Wes Blake,
DIY, Undisputed Era. It just was bam. To me, that's the greatest tag team era ever, is NXT Black and Gold. Especially when they were doing the Dusty tournaments. Not as good as the 80s Dusty tournaments, but when they pitted enemies were partners and then they formed tag teams out of it. How Undisputed Era got Roderick Strong, he turned on Pete Dunne, I believe. It just was awesome. But Impact, TNA, consistently America's Most Wanted, Machine Guns, Generation Me, which is Young Bucks. I don't like them. But them, Beer Money, shit. And then Beer Money was America's Most Wanted, and Team Canada, supergroup, because you had Team Canada. It's just, it was really, really good. And I think WWE, especially after the Monday Night Wars, tag team wrestling was no longer tag team wrestling. It was 2 fucking singles guys that they threw together so that the third guy could go for the world title and those 2 could be appeased with the tag belts. It was garbage. Wasn't good. Not that it wasn't good matches, but to me, it wasn't tag team wrestling. It was two guys teaming up against two guys. And so, yes, to answer your question, Impact Wrestling, nobody was better than them in that window that you're talking. And to be fair to Ring of Honor, nobody watched that shit. My friend was on it, and I would see him, and I would ask him all the time, how the fuck can I watch this show? He would tell me, and it never worked. And that would be Truth Martini. And I tried to watch Ring of Honor. It just never was on. If it was on, it was on.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just giving the flowers where they richly deserve. Ring of Honor had a decent tag team division.
Because the Briscoe brothers or something to be said about. Like, I know who they are, at the very least.
But they were the anchors of Ring of Honor's tag team division. But TNA, because they were the number 2 company in North America, TW, we cannot deny that fact that their tag team division was stacked.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just putting a bow on it. But let's focus on these 2 tag teams before we even talk about the rivalry that they had, because again, it showcased what tag team wrestling was all about. Let's start with Beer Money Incorporated, that consists of Cowboy James Storm and Bobby Roode. And TW, I kind of want to compare it to, let's say, like, and don't get me wrong, and you're going to have this face, but Beer Money, the success of Beer Money is no different than the success of the Rock and Roll Express. And what I mean by this is both Bobby Roode and Cowboy James Storm were toiling in TNA's, purgatory as singles competitors. Bobby Roode was a wannabe $1 million man, Teddy DiBiase, and the gimmick just didn't get over. Cowboy James Storm is a wannabe redneck or a wannabe Austin, or wannabe Dusty Rhodes, whatever the case may be, TW. But I think it was Dutch Mantel or Jeff Jarrett that put them together and said sink or swim, and they fucking flew. They really flew because they complemented each other. It was almost like they
looked alike. They looked like a team.
Not only they looked like the team, but hear me out, TW, because the way they were presented on TV, it was like wrestling's odd couple. Like Felix Unger and all that stuff. Because Bobby Roode was supposed to keep that that moniker, the rich boy gimmick and stuff like that, and then Cowboy James Storm, got him out of his shell. Got him comfortable and all that stuff, because Bobby Roode, everybody was talking about Bobby Roode being like untapped potential as a singles competitor. But now he went back into the tag team role. Like you said, Bobby Roode was in Team Canada. We cannot deny that. But Bobby Roode was missing something. He was missing that charisma. He was missing that kind of like character development, if you will, Reflectionites. And Cowboy James Storm opened the door. It's almost like Flying Brian Pillman opening the door for Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Hollywood Boss. So what say you about Beer Money Incorporated? Do you agree with the Rock and Roll Express analogy? Like you put them together and magic happens, or you have a different take?
I don't remember that. The Rock and Roll Express were a team the first time I saw them, so I don't remember that. But I do remember thinking that Beer Money Inc. was a ripoff of $1 Million Man and IRS.
Wait, hold on. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you trying to make a bet with yourself that whatever you're building, you're going to try to finish it before the taping?
No, I'm gonna be done for sure before that.
Oh, okay. I'm just asking because it's just funny because I'm watching you. Go ahead, TW. I'm sorry.
He's asking me. Because I remember, because I was watching it. I watched it because it's Scott, and all the Team Canada guys were guys that I came up with, and or came around after I was already winding down. So I watched it. And I think I've said it on here before. I wasn't a big fan of Bobby Roode because I thought he was rude to me at a BCW reunion show. And, turns out he just didn't know who I was. And Jeff Kavanaugh, my buddy, he said, dude, that guy is a sweetheart. And turns out he was. He just didn't know who I was and was protective of the locker room, if you will, like one of them old school guys. But once I started talking, when the cameras rolled, he realized I was someone that wrestled, and he was fine. But before that, I was just some jabron in street clothes in the locker room. So when I saw him, and I really didn't like James Storm either. But now, like, it's sad because of these 4 guys, 2 of them are rumored to make their WWE debut soon. One of them had a cup of coffee there, but chose to go back to Impact. But Bobby Roode, he's Shawn Michaels in his foursome because he went on to be glorious. But once I watched without prejudice, if you will, they were undeniable as a team. They were like to me one of the best teams. Period. Like if we're talking all of wrestling, they would have fit right in WWE. They would have done well in WWE. And it's always like, to me, when you say untapped potential, they were, because they could have been so much more than they were, and they were a lot. You know what I mean? If they would have signed,
they're not even I can't even call them untapped. I guess you call them untapped because they never jumped to WWE as a tandem. I understand that, but the pedigree is there. Being multiple time TNA tag team champions, win that belt, and that organization really meant something. I think they might have did a New Japan. They might have fought for the New Japan tag titles. I don't know if they won it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were already internationally known as one of the best tag teams of that modern era. So I just can't call them untapped. I think they were, if we do the tag, not the Mount Rushmores, but if we do a top 10, Beer Money was working their way to being undeniably maybe even top 7 or top 8. That's what, if they kept it together for that legacy. That's just me. So
of all time or Impact?
Well, first in Impact, they're already in the top 3. That's already given. Of all time, I would say
if they got higher.
What?
Who do you got higher at 1 and 2
in TNA?
Yeah.
Well, you can't deny America's Most Wanted. I'm not. There's no order, but Beer Money could be number 1. But sometimes people say Team 3D is number 1. Some people say LAX is number 1. So again, it's very subjective. But Beer Money is top 3 no matter where you put them, and you're not wrong. But anyway.
I wouldn't put Team 3D there because that was the ass end of them. Like their peak was WWE ECW, not, to me, Impact. Not that they didn't do good, but I would say
it just puts a stamp on the legacy of Team 3D.
The Guns and Beer Money, to me, and then America's Most Wanted, you could slide in there at 3, which is a testament to James Storm and he was a good singles wrestler too. So like that guy is untapped potential. He could have been. I could see him running like what Ethan Page is doing now. I could see James Storm doing that as a babyface, especially 5 years ago, whenever that was, that he almost did it. He came out wrestled Samoa Joe. It's just too bad that guy. I don't know. Maybe that guy makes good money doing something else. I don't know, but
he's a real estate broker right now, so he's making good money. But let's talk about the other tag team on the equation. And you have an affinity for this tag team, and rightly so. I think it's more for Alex Shelley, but the Motor City Machine.
It's both of them.
Oh, okay, but the Motor. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying you have an affinity for Motor City Machine Guns because, again, not only they're from the Michigan area, so that's already biased right there, but he has an affinity, but TW has an affinity for them. Nothing wrong with that. But we have to talk about Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, the Motor City Machine Guns. And TW, of course, you need a dance partner. So they are a perfect dance partner for Beer Money, per se. The gimmick of the Motor City Machine Guns is kind of a funny one because in TNA lore, they were kind of like portrayed as the goofball kids that pranked on everybody else. And they never took the wrestling job seriously. That's the way it kind of looked at it. And then somehow or some way, they finally woke up. I don't know if it was Main Event Mafia. I don't know if it was about being loyal to TNA or whatever the case may be. But they finally woke up and they finally took their job seriously. And then the Motor City Machine Guns were so close to becoming tag team champions. I think they had to go over the mountain, if you will, Reflectionites, to beat Beer Money to become a tag team champion. Don't get me wrong. Don't quote me on that, TW, but they had to beat somebody. It was like the Bulls and the Pistons. So for it was the Pistons and the Lakers. So because they're Motor City Machine Guns, ha ha ha. So you had to go over the mountain, and the Beer Money was the Lakers. So you go over that mountain, if you will. But TW, with the way they were portrayed, and then, their legacy is set no matter what, because they came back in TNA in the 2020s, if you will, Reflectionites, to cement that legacy as one of the, I guess you could say, the top 3, and sometimes arguably the number 1 tag team in TNA history. I don't know where we would put them on the hierarchy of all time, I guess you could go maybe top 25 if you will. I'm not gonna say that.
Absolutely top 25.
Top 25. So what say you? Because again, I know I've seen Alex Shelley more on the Indies than I've seen Chris Sabin. That's for me, my experience, because Alex Shelley came around on the East Coast TW for the Ring of Honor, so I got to see a lot of Ring of Honor around the East Coast area. But I saw more of it as a singles competitor, and I saw the untapped potential in Alex Shelley as a singles guy. I saw him being that prick and a dick when he wanted to be, and it was kind of funny to the Professor, no doubt about it. But then when I saw him on TNA, I was like, and I saw this tag team, I'm like, okay, I see something with that. I just wish, I was like, if they get that character, if they get some kind of like gimmick in them, then they would get to another level. I never saw it with Motor City Machine Guns. I love the fluidity. I love the camaraderie. I love the chemistry. Don't get me wrong, TW. But what say you about the Motor City Machine Guns? Convince the Professor how great they are.
But they just continually grew. Like I always talk about my idol, Lex Luger.
Mm-hmm.
He got worse. He started out with potential and then he regressed.
Why you do that to poor Lex, man? Don't
I'm
do that.
just telling you, Lex is the prototype for starting out with such promise and then just, you know who that is right now? Jared Goff and Dak Prescott. They get paid and then they stop caring about getting better. They're good enough. And that's Lex. I don't think you would get an argument from Lex that he was that way.
Okay.
But he still made a long, legendary career that should be Hall of Fame. I would hope soon it would be. But at the end of the day, I met the Machine Guns when they were right out of wrestling school. They credit the House of Truth. That's not where they trained. They trained. Actually, no. They credit Border City, the school I went to, Can-Am Wrestling School, which they did dabble in, but they went to House of Truth first. And I want to say there was even someone else trained them before that. They came around, I remember around 2001, right? September 11th, that stuff. They had come around that summer, I think was their time around here a little before. Both Michigan guys, and just absolute full of respect. Shelley, they're both quiet, but Sabin really quiet. Like I'd rib him and he almost like didn't know how to take it, right? Like we all ribbed him, not just me. Shelley was a little bit more of the talker between the two, but they weren't a team. They just, I don't even know if they met each other when I met them, or they met at school or whatever. But Alex Shelley's name is Patrick. He teamed with a guy named Matt. They were called the Upstart Players. So I wrestled them guys a few times. That was like their first matches around here. And just absolute, I tell them when I see them, I don't see him often, but I see him usually once a year at least. And he's just a sweetheart of a human being. Whereas Sabin is Josh. He comes across as like he
reserved. He's a reserve. Maybe he's like
he's reserved. And we actually did have a conversation. I'm like, yeah, Mr. Big Time or whatever, fucking with him. And he's like, bro, I swear, because I was talking about the Facebook and stuff, because I would talk to Shelley on there and Sabin, but Sabin's like, bro, I only have that to sell gimmicks. That's it, But when you see him in person, he was awesome, and they were good, and they just got better and better. I wrestled Sabin singles a lot. I wrestled Shelley in tag teams, and so when they finally teamed up, which I think started in Impact, D'Amore brought him down because D'Amore wasn't necessarily running shit yet, but he had clout enough to get guys down there. Eric Young, A1, Petey, obviously Bobby Roode, Divine, those guys all were guys around here, and Scott got them in there, and they made the best of it, right? And it's funny because I talk about this a lot, how guys are smaller, but when you have that smaller ring like Impact has, not that dumbass 6-sided ring, the regular ring, they don't look that small. And when we're watching this series, I would say Bobby Roode and James Storm are good sized guys. They're like probably 80s Rick Rude, Roddy Piper size, just maybe a little smaller than that. And Shelley and Sabin, you think of them as like Rey Mysterio, but Rey is a different animal altogether. He's like the smallest they come, but also awesome. These guys and Shelley constantly put on weight and always looked good doing it. He didn't do me, just gain weight to be bigger and look like a tub of shit. He actually, and then Sabin had a couple really bad injuries. They thought he was done, and he came back and won the Impact title. So those two, to sell you on them, they're both the little engines that could. They both took, eggs and made egg salad out of it. They did whatever they gave them, they made it lead to getting more. And Shelley especially, because he's done Japan, team with Kushida, and not to knock Saban, but Saban I think was content being here, being in Impact and all that, and they would still do BCW shows and whatever else. But they love the business, and the two of them together is magic. It's undeniable. And for me, I mean, remember, wasn't Shelley the camera guy for Kevin Nash or whatever?
It was Shelley. He was hanging around with Kevin Nash during
his foot in the door there. I don't even remember how Saban got in there, probably X Division stuff. But again, Saban was just thrown in there as a body and ended up rising to it. Like, he's in the conversation for greatest X Division champion of all time. So they took what was given to them and what they earned, and then they made more. They probably were given less than they did earn, but then earned more with what they were given. And two of them who absolutely couldn't be more happy for both of those guys, not just because they're from around here. Both of them, I would say, would admit knowing me. It's not one of those situations where they don't know me.
You will applaud local boys that made it big, and they deserve
and did embarrass us, because there's guys that made it big that embarrass us that I don't applaud. So, and I'm not tight with EY and Bobby Roode and all them, so I don't have the same pride, if you will, like I do for Shelley, Saban, D'Lo, and Edge and Christian. These are guys that I came up with, who I saw them wrestle in front of 9 people like they were wrestling in front of 90,000. They always gave it their all.
Well, it's kind of funny, because I want to put a bow on this with a question to you, because, for the Motor City Machine Guns, for Beer Money per se, TW, I don't know what the hell that ever meant, but anyway.
That means I'm from Detroit, Motor City.
So I've never been to Detroit.
This is Michigan, and Detroit is the thumb, under the thumb.
So what is this?
That's New Jersey. And fuck them.
But let me ask you this
question. I got a new spot in New Jersey I got to hit. Some bagel place that's right by the bus station. You probably know what it is.
Bentley's, I don't know
something bagels. It's famous. It's in like a little shop by the bus station. Then you're going to put me on the bus like Billy Madison when I go to New York.
All right. Neither here nor there. But let's get on with the show. But anyway, TW, I must ask this question. And this goes for both Beer Money and for Motor City Machine Guns. Because, again, morally for the Motor City Machine Guns, because, again, you have, like, history with them. So, per se, today's tag teams will say that the Motor City Machine Guns is who they watched and kind of studied and all that stuff. So you have history with them. You wrestled both of them. So what say you? I guess, is it the Hardys? Is it Edge and Christian that people will say, well, we watched them to try to not take from them, but they are our influence.
Who their peers and inspirations were? Oh, it's Los Rudos. It's Los Rudos all day.
Hey, okay. I want
for sure. For sure, it's Edge. You throw the Dudleys in there. I'm sure it was a thrill for those guys to wrestle the Dudleys. I think everyone at the end of the day, Adam Cole has said it. DIY has said it. I'm sure the Machine Guns, who are a little before those guys, will say it. Everyone at the end of the day, I think in the modern era, the prototype for most of these guys is this dude right here. And so I think they all, and sometimes Brett, but Shawn Michaels, if you look at their innovation, if you look at their selling, their bumping, all that, a lot of these guys are big Shawn Michaels guys. So they probably, like me, I watched it in real time. They probably watched it on tape. They probably watched the Rockers matches. They probably watched the Brainbusters matches. Because honestly, like, if I could find that tape that John Muse made me of all these Rockers and Brainbusters matches, obviously they were similar because that's how they did it back then. But the innovation and the teamwork and I see it in these matches with Beer Money versus it's amazing how many moves Bobby Roode and James Storm did that aren't moves that everyone's done 117 times. Like, sure, they probably did a double super kick, but that wasn't the peak. They did the fucking, the backcracker into a power bomb. They did so many moves, and it was like, well, the first time I seen it was you guys. I'm sure someone else did it too that they got it from. And then obviously the machine guns did tons of shit. Like their finish was the neck breaker splash and stuff like that. So Edge, Christian, Hardys, and Team 3 absolutely is probably what they came up watching as far as tag team stuff. But I think all of them were inspired by Shawn Michaels and Brett to a point.
Cool. All right. So let's get into this Greatest Rivalries edition, Reflectionites, because I picked a best of 5 series between Beer Money and the Motor City Machine Guns for TW to watch, and we can all celebrate. This was during the 2010, 2011-ish time period, TW. So I'm just giving you some clarity here because the best of 5 series came about because at Victory Road, there was controversy. It was Beer Money defending those tag team titles against Motor City Machine Guns, and with not chicanery, but I guess there was a rough bump and all that stuff. So Beer Money thought they won, but somehow, some way, Motor City Machine Guns came away with those tag team titles. But Beer Money said that you did not win this cleanly. You did not win this definitively. So the Motor City Machine Guns said, bump that. Let's make it definitive. Let's do a best of 5 series. And then we will have an undisputed TNA Tag Team Champions. And TW, before we even talk about match 1, match 2, match 3, match 4, and match 5 per se, the best of series, TW. I mean, not since at this time, not since the era of Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff, not since the era of Booker T and Chris Benoit for the television title doing the best of 7 series. And now for today's purposes, Reflectionites, WWE is trying that with a best of 5 series between Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. But TW, before we even talk about these matches per se, the best of concept, TW, it's kind of a difficult thing to do for the fans because you got to one up what you did in match 1 and match 2, and to keep those fans engaged and invested. So what say you about the positives and negatives of doing a best of concept series for either this match here per se, or even the ones that you celebrated like we're talking about right now?
Well, I'm just going to say it right now. This is, and it's funny because they say it a million times during the commentary, this is to me the best of 5 set ever. And okay. I think the hard part is, first of all, the guys they do it with are usually undercard. Like, no offense to Andrade and Carmelo, but it's not Cody and Kevin Owens doing it, right? And the reason you don't do it with Cody and Kevin Owens is because you can't have Cody sweep Kevin Owens, because then that makes Kevin Owens, you might as well just pack his bag and send him to AEW. But you also don't want Cody getting pinned and losing 2 falls or whatever, right? So, okay. But also, like, I want to say Benoit and Booker T, they end up pulling it off, and I think theirs was best of 7. They just had regular ass matches. They just wrestled each other 7 fucking times, and that's where you run the risk of, okay, we've already seen this 4 times. Like, this is boring, So the good thing is these guys, each match had a stipulation. And the other thing that I think is a downfall of having a best of 5 is throughout history, you've had 2 out of 3 falls matches. Why can't you just do that and have it all in the same night? You're making them do a best of 5, but we got to watch 5 fucking weeks in a row. And, it might get stale by then. But they did a best of 5. And I don't know if they pre-told, I think they made it out like they picked whoever won the last match got to pick the stipulation, which just makes it fresh. Like, oh, what are they going to do next? And I love, not to give it all away, but I love that they finished the way they finished, because this, not only is it the best of 5 in concept, it's the best in 5 series because they pulled it off. Like, these 4 guys did it and somehow made all 5 matches, which obviously we're letting you know there was no sweep involved, and it went to a game 5. But they did it so well.
And this during this time was around the time that Paul Heyman was interested in TNA in being a part of them or having some kind of ownership per se, because again, I don't want to talk about management, but Paul Heyman said that these 4 guys were the prime example of why I wanted to be involved with TNA, because I can do something with them. I just wanted to say that for the reflection.
Sure.
So go ahead, TW, finish your point, and then we'll talk about these.
But they pull it off. All 4 guys come out looking like roses, and every single match, while not quite, and by the way, I should have threw this in there, because I think anybody who's worth a damn in the wrestling business ever, whether they started 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they have watched Ricky Steamboat versus Macho Man, and all 5 of these matches have shades of Ricky Steamboat versus Macho Man. You had no idea who was going to win, even though the formula played out the way it did, and it's obviously predictable after the first 2 matches, but you still didn't know who was winning until it was over. And they did it so well that people were on the edge of their seats. People were glued to the ring with their eyes. No one was looking at their cell phones. They were just all in. The fans were all in. And the guys delivered, all 4 of them. The refs delivered everything. Just the whole deal. One match I thought was kind of a stinker just because I'm not a fan of that match, but storyline, it was the perfect match. It fit the thing, and it's just this is the best one ever.
Cool. So let's talk about the first match, TW, and to start off this best of 5 series, because again, it was controversy at Victory Road, so they wanted to make a definitive winner. But again, like you said, each winner of the fall was going to dictate the next match. But the first match, both parties agreed it was going to be a ladder match where the contract was hanging up on the top, and then you had to pull it down to have the quote unquote advantage going into fall number 2. So TW, what say you about this? Was the one you didn't like, or this was okay? Was this a good start?
I love this one, and I love the finish.
Was this a good starter, or should they have started traditionally?
Or I didn't even know that was the idea. I was always wondering what the fuck was the contract for, because at one point I was confused, thinking, all right, they won it, and then they had the second match, and they had a promo in the 4th match that made me feel like that's when they decided it was going to be a best of 5. But now it makes more sense, because this video, just so you guys know, is one big compilation put on YouTube by TNA Wrestling. So it was week
after week after week. Right. So they were doing this every week.
And it just jumped right into the next match. So you didn't get to see any kind of build-ups other than that 4th match in-ring promo before it started. But such a good finish, because you run the risk and I'm just going to say it. Beer Money wins the first 2 falls. And that you run the risk of making the Machine Guns look terrible, that they win the match and lose their first 2 matches after it. But they won the first match with a ref bump. James Storm comes in with his gimmick and hits him with the beer bottle, and then grabs the thing and sits there as the ref gets in. He goes, "Look, I got it," and he won. And it was perfect, because it got heat on Beer Money. It got him to pick the next match, which I believe they picked a bunkhouse.
It was a bunkhouse tornado match.
And then in that match, same thing. Poor Alex Shelley takes another beer bottle, because they hit him with their finish, and they were going to win that one. Ref bump, beer thing, throws Bobby Roode. And then the beauty of it, the
unbelievable,
underappreciated. Bobby Roode is knocked the fuck out and laying there like he's still knocked out, while on top of Alex Shelley, who's knocked out by the beer bottle, and they win 2 falls. You can feel the life come out of the fans, because it's like hockey. The Red Wings are up with 2 seconds to go. They're about to win the series, and then fucking Pittsburgh ties it with 1 second to go and then wins in overtime. It's like, that's what it felt like both times. Like the Guns won and then lost.
Let me ask you this before we talk about, again, we'll get more in depth with it, because I want to get more in depth with match 2, because I want to but I want to talk about the chemistry between all 4 of them, but also what is the overall goal for this best of 5 series match for both Beer Money and the Motor City Machine Guns. To me, Beer Money is already set with the legacy. They've already been multiple-time tag team champions. They've already had multiple, let's say, main event caliber matches, again, with the tag teams, even preceding them, like Team 3D and British Invasion, stuff like that, and LAX to a degree. I think the best of 5 series was to give, in my humble opinion, TW, and this is not a slight on them, but it was to give legitimacy to the Motor City Machine Guns. Because, again, like I told you previously, they were not taken seriously because they acted like dicks and goofballs and stuff like that. So I think this best of 5 series, the goal of it was to make them legitimate. The goal of it was to make Motor City Machine Guns the next tier as a believable tag team champion and also a believable contender. Do you agree with that assessment, or have a different take on that?
I agree with it, but I add something to it.
Okay.
You said earlier that they weren't taken serious and they were close to winning the tag belts and they didn't, but then they finally something clicked. I think it was to legitimize them. It was to give them the rub, but you can't do that with them just beating Beer Money. If you beat Beer Money and then Beer Money just kind of quietly goes away, then it looks like they beat Beer Money at the end of their run. By having this best of 5 and losing the first 2 to them, it shows that Beer Money's still on their A game, right? And the only reason they're not champs is because it's a best of 5, and you got to wait to that 5th and deciding, or 3rd and deciding victory for them. Second, it also it makes it that this wasn't a fluke. Like, they didn't win the belts on their, with the ref bump and the what's it called? The
beer bottle?
No, how the finish. The finish was mired in controversy. So it's like Daniel Bryan, when he finally wins the belt, he can't lose it the next turn, because then it looks like a fluke. And he has to defend it and defend it well. So now they beat the Beer Money for it. Now they're fighting in the best 5. They're down 2-0, and they got to come back from this. And if they do, they're legit. They're the real deal. If they don't, they're like, they were good for a cup of coffee. That's what it would be. So the idea is to get them over as legitimate and not just a comedy act or a novelty act, but also to make Beer Money still look strong and doing it. Like, Beer Money still ain't done, and they're going to come back and want another shot at the tag belts, because that's the beauty of tag team wrestling. There's not that many teams. So inevitably, other teams that lost it get to rise back up and fight for it again. And as long as you got 3 teams and you can do the revolving door of the matches, it's a beautiful thing, right? So plus you have 4 guys.
And look at it this way: for these 2, the first 2 falls, TW, the ladder match and the bunkhouse match, you can see the polarization of it, because the ladder match, the champ should have the advantage, because, again, they're aerial, the camaraderie, the chemistry. Right. They should have that advantage. And then in match 2, because of the loss, it's a bunkhouse match. That's Beer Money. That's Beer Money City right there. That's Beer Money's wheelhouse. You can't beat them. So from that standpoint, now the Machine Guns are in a disadvantage. They're in an environment that people might not think that they can hang with. And for match 2, I want to try to keep it as close to the vessel on this. I know you want to go to match 3, 4, and 5, but hold on, TW. Hold on for me. But Motor City Machine Guns, even for the loss in match 2 of the bunkhouse match, this is where people, like you said, we have to keep the fans invested. But also, the theatrics of it is Machine Guns are coming in at a disadvantage. Machine Guns are coming into an environment that most people will say they're not going to make it. And they hanged with Beer Money. What say you about that?
Yeah, they did, and they hung, and there's so much innovation, and again, one thing you guys need to know listening is sometimes when you see someone do an offensive maneuver, you just assume that's theirs. Sometimes it's the fucking guy taking the bump who told that guy to do the move. It's their move because it's their bump, if that makes sense to you. And so you can't just assume when they're doing this crisscross tope that it was their idea. It could have very well been James Storm's or Bobby Roode's idea to do that. Or Scott D'Amore or Jeff Jarrett or someone in the back said, hey, can you guys do a crisscross spot? More than likely it was the Guns. But what I'm saying is it takes 4 of them to pull it off, the crisscross spot. These two got to be in the right spot to catch them. These two got to not hit each other when they're doing it. And that's just one of many very, ingenuity at its finest in these matches. And here we are in the second match, and it's basically the ladder match is also a tornado match, but they're 2 very distinctly different matches. You don't see the one and think they just did the same thing without a ladder, right? They just did 2 masterpieces. They just did it, and the crowd is and they're not quick 5-minute short matches. They got some time in, and they bump for each other. They had the false finishes. They had the screw finish. It just works of art, man. Like, all 4 guys were firing. There was no 4th guy getting carried by the other 3.
These 2 matches alone, Reflectionites, and this is no trolling again, made wrestlers like say, if you worked in WWE, TW, God damn, can we do that? We can do that. We can tell that kind of story on Monday Night Raw. We can tell that story on SmackDown. Yeah. We can tell that on a Backlash or a WrestleMania. If you give us that time, we can do that, Vince. Let us do it. And now, years later, new regime and all that stuff, now they're getting that time on the PLEs. Now they're getting that time at NXT and all that stuff. So neither here nor there. I just wanted to say that because, again, it's not trolling. It's just me being objective, Reflectionites, like I always am.
Absolutely factual that was happening then. Guys in WWE were going to Vince or whoever and going, dude, see how they're doing that in front of 30 people? We can do that in front of 30,000. Give us it. But that guy, for whatever fucking reason, just wasn't a fan of tag team wrestling. I don't get it.
Man,
especially since WrestleMania 1, his bread and butter was a tag team match.
But it was
main event.
But it was 2 singles men. But it was 2 singles men.
But it was team. It was teams.
It is what it is. We cannot.
And you would think that fucking weirdo would like it because 2 dudes looking like the Chippendales would be right up his alley.
Who knows?
Like yours.
That has nothing to do with me. But anyway, let's go on to match number 3 because, again, like TW said, Beer Money is up 2-0. So all they got to do, Reflectionites, is win 1 more fall, and they would win the tag team titles back. And they picked another kind of doozy for the Motor City Machine Guns to overcome all the odds. They said, fuck it, we are going to put the cage in. We're going to make match 3 the cage match. Psychologically, TW, it was, again, to make the Motor City Machine Guns kind of like fear the moment, kind of like fear the unknown. Because, again, it's the steel cage. Beer Money, again, as a fan, Bobby Roode and James Storm, they do this for breakfast. They will they will bleed to win. They will do whatever they already shown in the first 2 matches. They will do whatever it takes to win. And now you put them in a steel cage, TW. My question is, how can you top what they already did in match 1 and 2 with a steel cage match for match number 3?
Which ironically is another tornado match because it's all going at, and somehow it's still these are 4 guys.
TW,
hold
on for 1 second. Hold your thought, but I just want to, because the way you say it sounds sarcastic, Reflectionites, and I'm not trying to troll TW, but TW, you're saying it again. It's a tornado match. It's a 3rd variation of a tornado match, but you're not bored. The fans weren't bored.
I'm not saying it's sarcastic. I'm telling you, this is basically a recipe for them having the same match over and over again. It's Groundhog Day. But what these guys did, these 4 guys collectively took advantage of stipulations and made you realize why stipulation matches matter, right? They did stuff with the ladder that they did not do in the bunkhouse. They did stuff in the bunkhouse that they did not do in the ladder match. And now you got a cage match where obviously the cage offers you different things to do with the cage match, but all 3 matches so far are tornado. They're not even tagging. And yet they're still what we're calling the best tag team, best of 5. That we're calling it name only because they are tag teams, but not 1 match has been tag rules yet. Not 1.
Right. So TW, what caught you with the steel cage match and Reflectionites? This is where Motor City Machine Guns got on the board. It became 2-1 here. So the cage per se, TW, to me was a coming out party for the Motor City Machine Guns because you knew that either Alex Shelley or Chris Sabin was going to jump off the top of the cage or use the cage to accentuate their aerial capabilities. What say you, TW?
Both of them took bumps that I thought they almost died. And not them taking a bump. One was Sabin diving off the top of the cage with a crossbody to both Beer Money guys. And Beer Money didn't bump at the same time. The only thing that saved him was Bobby Roode had his legs and bumped first, so he landed knees first, then his upper body. Had James Storm bump first, he would have landed on his neck the way he landed on his knees. And he ended up with knee problems. I wouldn't doubt if this was the start of him, is that high cross body. But it still looked like $1 million. Crowd still popped. Then Shelley is standing on the top. It was a cool spot. Both Beer Money guys were climbing out. Shelley jumped on to the top rope, climbed with him, swept the leg of Bobby Roode, then grabbed James Storm and did a jaw jacker. And I think legit busted his own jaw. Because when he lands, you see him holding his head and going, oh, fuck, and rolling to the corner like, okay, holding his head. Because
isn't that more of a whiplash for the neck? Or
well, what it is he's holding James Storm's head, and they both bump at the same time, him on his knees, James Storm on his feet. But the problem is there's no stopping that momentum where James's head is going to come down on possibly his neck, but he was holding his head. And it's because his chin probably smacked the top of his skull, and he had short hair, so there's not a lot of padding. And he just has this look of confusion, and he grabs his head.
Concussion. That sounds like a concussion,
and then
right
rolls
there.
under the ring, and I'm like, yeah, that one fucking hurt. Not to mention, I guarantee you, he's taking that bump, and he's worrying about his knees, about how he's taking that, or his ankles, because I think he might have landed on one ankle and one knee. You know, like the Terry Taylor did that move as the Red Rooster. But he did off the fucking top rope, and immediately I'm like, yeah, he's regretting that one. And I don't even know what the fuck he did to James Storm, because he bumped way off screen, and you just see Shelley just completely in pain and roll into the corner. But absolutely, again, throwing caution to the wind. And you know what's awesome about this?
What?
Is, again, and it's not a knock on Impact. It's not. Back then, Impact, guys like Bischoff and Hogan and them guys were getting paid. Christian, Angle. But these dudes, they're not making WWE money, right? And so they could very, very easily fucking take a bump like that ends their career, and then they're bagging groceries back in Michigan, and they still fucking went for it. They did it, and that's where you know there's a passion and a love for the business and a desire. Again, I said this many times when I was wrestling. I said it on here that my motto was, no matter who I wrestled, I told them in the back, I said, listen, you and me are going out there and stealing the show. That's our motive. Whether we're in the title match, the first match, the fucking intermission ender, the intermission match before intermission, I don't give a fuck what match it is. When people leave here tonight, they're talking about you and me. And that's what I did. And there's no doubt in my mind, these four guys had the same mindset when they went out there. Like, we're stealing the show. You can have all the Hogan matches you want, the Angle matches. They're going to leave here talking about this one. And you could tell in their promo for that fourth match, Bobby Roode, that's from the heart. Chris Sabin, he's from the fucking heart, man. They're talking, they believe every word coming out of their mouth, and their praise for each other, and their knocking each other is respectfully done out of working for the match. They meant it, and they did it. They delivered. They didn't just say they were going to,
it's funny.
Reinvent the wheel. They did.
Before you can expound on the promo, but for the steel cage match, TW, for the first three matches, the beer bottle played an important role in the decision of the match.
Yeah.
Now the third time supposedly should have been the charm for Beer Money to give the clean sweep, but TW, that wasn't meant to be, because the beer bottle did not hit a Motor City Machine Gun. He accidentally hit Bobby Roode over the head with it, which I thought was beautiful. So TW, for the Reflectionites to learn that, understand
storytelling, man.
The storytelling.
Live by the bottle, die by the bottle. And the best thing about that finish,
Mhm.
they were putting Bobby Roode in that neck breaker splash. And when James Storm went to hit Sabin, he hit Bobby Roode. They then, I think, super kicked him, ironically, and then did the move to James Storm instead. And then pinned him. And it was like, how awesome is that? Because here's the subtle storytelling. They lost both times because of that beer bottle. But the time that they won, it looks like it's because of that beer bottle. But they didn't pin the guy that got hit with the bottle. They pinned the guy that swung it. So that makes them, their one win is better than the 2 beer monies on the down low because they didn't pin the guy that got hit with the beer bottle. It was beautiful.
Absolutely. So now the Machine Guns had the advantage to pick a match. So for the 4th match, Reflectionites, they wanted to pick their special. They wanted to pick what defines TNA Impact Wrestling, and that was Ultimate X. But before we got to Ultimate X, TW was talking about that promo. So, that was, I guess, for the promo itself. Yes, they had to get, something off their chest. Yes, they spoke from the heart. But TW, did we really need that? Was it really needed for this Best of 5 series, or did we need more promos before? Like, I don't know if TNA did that for each match each week. Did we need more promos to talk about the respect factor, the rivalry factor, or was this one promo that we saw here on this link enough for you?
I think it's good because this is the match that I didn't care for. I don't like the concept of it. But
Mr. Los Rudos, Mr. Cruiserweight yourself, you would have been perfect for this.
I know, but what is it? It's the 4th match, and it's the 4th match that isn't a tag team match. It's a tornado match. And Bobby Roode and James Storm look clunky. They look scared. But again, the beauty is that's why they picked it. But before the match, I think you have to have that promo because you have to let everyone else know why they picked this match, because this is their bread and butter. And Bobby Roode and James Storm didn't talk, but Bobby Roode was basically saying, look, we know this is your bread and butter, and we have one goal, which is basically, I'm saying, to be the best of the night, but they're saying to be the best tag team in the world, not just Impact Wrestling. Then go on to say, and the way you do that is by being Impact Wrestling tag team champs. I thought that was a little weak, but I loved Sabin's response, because the knock on Sabin and Shelley is they don't have the charisma. They don't have the talking skills that Bobby Roode and James Storm have. And what he did was he waited and he replied to what Bobby Roode said and said, hey, man, I don't know if you can see, but we're wearing those tag team belts, which means we are the best in the world because we are it was perfect. It was the perfect rebuttal. And then Alex Shelley, when Bobby Roode said that we don't have to wait no more, Alex Shelley just took his belt off and held it in their face like, come get it. And they said, this is where I think James Storm and Bobby Roode morph from IRS and DiBiase into Arn and Tully. They're throwing up the 4. They're 4-time tag team champions when they win. Now they are excellence. They're not Odd Couple. And they are letting you know that they are the best to do it. And they're backing it up. And the good thing is now, because they just beat them in the cage match, which you think was the deck stacked against the Guns. Now, because everybody knows it's written, whatever. Now the fans are thinking, great, no, they're going to beat them at their own match. And then they had the match. My favorite spot is Bobby Roode scaling the ropes while on James Storm's shoulder, who's struggling to carry him because Bobby just let him hold all his weight and just balance his positioning with the rope. It was glorious, man. There was some funny spots on that.
But you said this is the match you're not too keen on. I'm shocked.
I don't like it for the tag titles. I don't like it for
But for the concept of the best of 5, you just had to one up. You had to one up. This was the.
I know why they did it. I just don't like it. And the funny thing is, I didn't realize until we're recording that all 4 matches were Texas Tornado rules. And the funny thing is the match that I mentioned earlier is the match I think it should have been. Just you can't do that all in one night. But this match wasn't bad. It's just I didn't like it for the series.
Oh, okay. So
for the tag team titles. Like, this would have been a deciding match for the belts. And, you know, what is it? So this was the Ultimate X. What's the one with the cage?
Just a steel cage match.
No. The Ultimate X that has that cage.
Oh, it's kind of like their Thunderdome. I forget what they call it, but it's a dome. It's something dome.
Okay, I thought
it's a bubble.
X.
It's a bubble. No, the Ultimate X is what it was match 4, where
the 4 posts with the X.
The 4 posts with the X, and of course the contract is there, or whatever the case may be. And a funny spot where it was a race between it was Bobby Roode, and I think it was Chris Sabin. You know, but
Shelley.
It showed.
Was it Shelley?
I think it was Sabin.
Shelley was upside down.
Oh, okay.
Gone.
Well, they both look the same. But anyway, neither here nor there. Right. But it was supposed to show the Machine Guns having experience with the Ultimate X matches. It was supposed to show, why they picked it for a reason. So I was not surprised. It wasn't to me like, you couldn't do the beer bottle and then, they climb up and capture it. It would have been stupid. They had to win it. It had to make all that sense in the world. So now it's tied 2-2, and we go to the final fall, TW, of the best of 5. And this is where it gets funny because, for a fan of the for the IWC, people just love to complain. So, if Twitter was really at its phoenix, even though it was starting, it was baby steps. But if the IWC had legs, they would be like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that you did the bunkhouse match, you did a ladder match, you did Ultimate X, you did a cage match, and then for the 5th and final match, you just did a straight tag match with nothing?
2 out of 3 falls.
No, I'm just saying, but it's just a straight.
But
how the IWC is. But you know how the IWC
finish.
is.
It's a perfect finish because
I just want you to explain it to the
gimmick match wins, 2 gimmick match losses. But we're trying to find out who the best tag team is. And they finally just had a tag team match, winner take all, 2 out of 3 falls, because the first 4 matches weren't enough. Now we need someone to win 2 out of 3. It was very, very well done.
So basically for the Reflectionites, it was supposed to be best of 5, but it really was a best of 7 because they added more. So
yeah.
TW. Again, but I'm just saying for the complainers out there, even though 2 out of 3 fall matches is different, I get that. But how people are. Well, they got the ladders, they got the Ultimate X, they got the cage, they got the tornado bunkhouse match, they got a lot of gimmick matches. So I think that's why I want you to educate some of those Reflectionites to say why this made sense to be 2 out of 3 falls in the psychological realm.
This actually should have been where they had the promo, right? Because they should have said, look, we've done all these gimmick matches. Let's just wrestle. May the best team win and then do it. And to give away the first fall, Beer Money wins it, and they win it clean. And it's a thing of beauty because it stops the bleeding of them losing 2 in a row. Mm-hmm. And now you got people in the audience going, well, they won 2, they lost 2, now they won 1. Maybe they're going to win 2, and it'll be over, right?
Right.
But that wasn't to be because the Machine Guns won the second fall and they won it cleanly. And now you're down to this is it. It's all the marbles for them. And Shelley got absolutely murdered for that first fall. And then the guy immediately goes, and the second fall starts now. And then Bobby Roode just starts putting the boots to him. It's like it looked like the deck was stacked against the Guns. And they went on to just put on a clinic, man. And again, more tag team bumps, more ingenuity, a lot of tag team moves by both teams that were just. You keep
saying that this is maybe a hybrid or the evolution of the Rockers versus the Brainbusters. Is that where you're going with this? Okay,
it was an absolute clinic. It was everything. Like if I were starting now, when I started and when John Muse asked me, do you want to be a member of Los Rudos? It was actually Mike Kelly, God rest his soul. He and John Muse came up with this idea. John Muse did. And Mike Kelly said, hey, me and my friend Johnny want to put you and Rico together and call you Los Rudos. And I'm like, okay. Which was kind of awesome in hindsight. But at the time, I'm like, why are you trying to change my name? I'm like Willis. I'm a fucking Different Strokes. I'm like, what you talking about, man? I'm Tommy Wonder, motherfucker. I've told that story many times. I'm not going to tell it again. I'm like, yeah, fuck that. I still want to be Tommy Wonder. So we became Los Rudos or whatever. I don't even know where my train of thought was. Oh, so when John and I we became good friends over it, right? And I talked to him quite a bit. I have a Kerry Von Erich and a Lex Luger and an Adam Oates figure that he gave me because he also was a toy collector. He just made me promise to never sell them. And I'm going to send him pictures one day of the Kerry Von Erich, the Lex Luger, and the Adam Oates to show him that I didn't. But he asked me, he's like, we just want you guys to be tag team specialists. Like, who are your favorites? And I'm like, it's the Rockers and the Brainbusters. And ironically, I hadn't seen these matches because they were all like house shows or primetime wrestling, stuff like that. They didn't really do a program on TV. If they did, it was once or twice. So he made me a VHS tape of all these matches, singles, like Arn versus one of them, Tully versus one of them, whatever. Made it, and I studied it. If someone came up to me today and said, who do you want to study? I would send them this 1 hour YouTube clip and say, study these guys. Because it's a beautiful thing. And no offense to Edge and Christian and Hardys and the Dudleys, the difference, what they did, especially the TLCs, was car crashes. What Beer Money and Motor City Machine Guns did was wrestling. It was an absolute clinic. All 4 gimmick matches was a clinic. The 2 out of 3 falls match was a beautiful finish to that clinic, which was a clinic in its own. Everything was just, it was 2 tag teams showing why they were the best in the world and why they were fighting for the tag team titles. It was beautiful. I don't even remember who the other teams were at that time. So
TW, take it home. How did the Motor City Machine Guns win the final fall so we can almost close this out?
It's all 4 of them are going at it, tornado style. And Bobby Roode gets bumped. I think they did a move to one of the guns, and then Saban made the save, I think, and then they set him up. Or did Bobby Roode get pushed out of the way by Storm? And they did whatever. They did that neck breaker splash to James Storm, and he kicked out. And then they did something that I like.
And it's funny you say that because they didn't kick out previously, so right. it made it even bigger that he kicked out because everything was on the line for it. That's what made it so beautiful.
And then they did what I love. Cody did it against somebody. I don't know if it was Finn Balor or somebody. Where they kicked out of the finish, and then he picked him up and just did it again, and then he didn't kick out. Like, it took 2 of our finishers, and that's what they did to James Storm, and it ends pretty quickly after that. So it would have been nice to see the 4 of them hug after that, right? But they made it out like there was heat. I don't know what happened after that. Again, I didn't watch a lot of Impact either. But it was just, when you sent me this, I didn't realize, because I remember I was thinking just 2 days ago, I'm like, man, I'm going to have to tell them we can't do this week because I got the colonoscopy on Monday and Tuesday I got Top Golf. And I'm like, oh, Top Golf's not till 9:15. I'm like, but what are we doing? I'm like, oh, yeah, he just sent me something about greatest rivalries. And I thought I was going to go there and it was going to be 5 matches to watch. So when I clicked on it, I didn't know it was the best of 5. I thought it was just someone talking about their feud. And I'm like, this I can get into because you don't really need to watch the whole matches to talk about this kind of stuff. But I'm glad I did because I was able to talk in depth about the finishers, but also the bumps they took in the matches themselves, which is, again, why I'm saying Shawn Michaels is clearly, to me, an inspiration because Bobby Roode took some of the most beautiful DDTs ever. I keep wanting to call him Patrick. Alex Shelley took that jaw, whatever the fuck you call it, backbreaker, and just dead laid there, and then Rude picked him up and then DDT'd him after that. Just these 4 guys were meant to wrestle each other. It was just.
So you would say that they took tag team wrestling to another level because of the Special Series.
That's not been seen until NXT, which is probably 5-10 years later.
So TW, let me say this. Your friend gave you a VHS cassette of the Rockers versus the Brainbusters, an hour's worth. If you was coming around in 2024, your friend would probably give you this, right?
Yes.
The Motor City Machine Guns and the Beer Money to kind of like study what you want to do.
To show you what modern tag team wrestling was, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, you could watch Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express, also clinics, right? But I told him my favorites were Rockers and Brainbusters. He said deal, and just gave me 5-6 matches of theirs, some singles, mostly tag, and it was beautiful. It was a thing of beauty, and one of my favorite spots I stole from it is Arn and Tully went to suplex, like a double suplex. So Marty, Sean caught him like it was an atomic drop. Then the Brainbusters turned around, double super kick. Me and Rico were doing super kicks long before the young old bucks. And we did it because of Shawn Michaels. And again, everyone's doing it because of Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is the best to ever do it, man. Him and Brett. I'm never going to not give Brett credit. But I think more people, well, no, I think there's guys that also steal from Brett. You know, Brett was methodical. Shawn was a firecracker. And I think that's what these four guys were, a combination of both. They were methodical, but they were bumping machines, and they made each other look great.
So with that being said, TW, let's put a bow on this because, again, there's really nothing left to talk about. So, you know, in closing, TW, I'll say this. Again, in the hierarchy of TNA tag team wrestling, again, these two teams itself, they're in the top 3 no matter what. Wherever you put them, you're not wrong wherever you put them in the top 3. That just, point blank period, Reflectionites. There's no dispute about that. My thing, TW, is this. In hindsight, because you kind of said this a little bit, so I want you to gauge on this a little bit more in depth. Out of all this, out of all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the beer bottle breaking and all that stuff, climbing the X, climbing the ladder, climbing the cage, 2 out of 3 falls, you give all of that. Did you need to see them handshake it? Did you need to see the respect factor, or are you satisfied with the total ending? Like, it was a rivalry, the best team won in that regard.
I would have liked to see the handshake, but I understand why you don't see it, because they're heels versus faces. It wasn't Benoit versus Booker T in Eddie's memory. It was 4 guys that didn't like each other, and 2 guys that were miffed at the idea that those guys thought they were better than them. 2 guys who thought the other 2 guys had nerve for even thinking they were in each other's class. If you do have them handshake, then you have to turn Beer Money babyface after that. And I'm not sure they didn't, but I know they were babyface for a minute. But it was just
because
I like that all 4 of them were laying there.
James Storm would become a babyface. Well, maybe like a couple months after, because then they would be fighting for the heavyweight title between Beer Money. So
yeah. So I think they did it. They passed the torch and they went on to singles.
Yeah. So with that being said, there's nothing left to say. Reflectionites, like TW. I know this is a dumb question, but would you recommend the Reflectionites to watch this
100%
best of 5 series?
100%. This is probably one of my favorite things we've ever done.
And also in closing too, for maybe a Reflectionite who wants to be a wrestler, who's going to those schools, maybe Border City, all that stuff. TW, for today's wrestling, and I know you always make fun of AEW, is this a good barometer of...
No. I make fun of AEW fans, not AEW.
Okay. My mistake. I'm just saying.
I'm pulling for AEW.
I know they got their deal. They're gonna get their deal no matter what. But TW, I'm just saying for the wrestlers coming up that are going to the schools, is this tape of the best of 5 series a good barometer for a wrestler to look at, study, and say, maybe I can do that when I get my chance?
Yep. And I'm going to add to that. So I'm glad you asked that, because, I didn't get into wrestling to be a tag team. I didn't get into wrestling for anything other than I wanted to be the man. Maybe I shot for the IC title was my dream. Not the world title.
We all have egos, TW. Of course, we want to be Hulk Hogan.
This is what I would tell someone starting out today.
Okay.
Especially if they're on the shorter height side or weight side. Go into it knowing tag team wrestling and singles wrestling, because odds are you're going to get put in tag matches a lot in the beginning just so they can use you, right? And a good way to rise above is to excel when you get put in that tag team match. So hang out with your partner, hang out in the back, hang out with your opponents, talk about stuff. But when you're going to the school and there's usually 8 or 9 guys in a class, you practice tag team stuff, because chances are you're getting put in the tag team. And for sure, Rico and I, when we wrestled each other in the beginning, the first 11 matches were against each other. We won crowds over. People thought we were tiny. They're like, look at these fucks. And we come out, we win them over. But the second we became a tag team and wrestled the two guys that we, as a tag team, wrestled singles first, the first 2 months before actually having a tag match, we were the most over guys in the company almost immediately. I was told that was going to happen. I was told that you're going to be a heel for the first 3 months and then you're going to be baby faces because these people are going to love you. And it fucking happened exactly the way he said it was going to happen. To this day, I'm still stunned by it. But he saw the wrestling fan was turning into, you know, and you said it yourself, the East Coast would cheer bad guys towards the early 90s to mid 90s. And that same fan base is Detroit. Detroit loved that ECW shit. That's why they were always on our shows, right? And so it all played out. And if they would have never asked me to be in that tag team, I don't know that I make it to Lima, Ohio. I don't know if I make it to Indiana and to Kentucky and all these places that I got to go to, because if I'm just another one of these fucking vanilla fucking white dudes that are wrestling, you know, I had long hair. A lot of guys didn't have long hair. And, you know, I was more of a throwback guy, but I still flew around. The tag team is what got me the 15 years that I got, you know, to do it.
You had to knock with the tag team.
And if I would have said no to that, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life, because whoever would have said yes to it, I would have watched it happen for them. People, the guys, the boys in the back, everyone in the back, everyone was like, dude, you guys are fucking over. They loved it. They wanted to wrestle us because they wanted some of the crowd, because they were fucking so into our matches. It was insane. And it was a machine. It wasn't me and Rico. It was me and Rico and John Muse, and it was Steve Nixon, and it was Sean Casey, and it was, you know, any other guys that we ended up wrestling, you know, Scott D'Amore. Here's the thing. Look at my shirt, right? What does the audience always say? They fucking wasting LA Knight away. They're wasting them. They're wasting fucking Joe Hendry, right? They have no patience. And in the tag team titles, Al Snow got signed by WWE, so he forfeited the tag belts. He was teamed with this guy, Ray the Crippler Roberts. So they had a tournament. Everyone there knew that Los Rudos was winning those tag belts. Everyone. And you know what happened in the 4-team tournament? Los Rudos versus the Knox brothers in the first round. Canadian Lightning, that's Scott D'Amore and Otis Apollo, versus the Outlaws in the first round. Canadian Lightning won. And then me and Rico lost in the first round because Canadian Lightning cost us the match, right? So then at the end...
And a rivalry was blossoming.
Well, no, one-night rivalry. At the end of the night, very Hulk Hogan, Yokozuna, Bret Hart, Los Rudos came out and fucking... I don't know if we couldn't have costed them, because this is what happened. Something happened with the Knox brothers, and then it ended up being Los Rudos versus Canadian Lightning, and we beat Scott D'Amore and Otis Apollo to end the night as tag champs, but they won them first, and then we beat them for the belts. Like, we came out and beat them up after they won or whatever, and then they got so mad they challenged us and we won the belts. But
storytelling.
But it made the crowd go up and down. But my point is, to answer your question, yes, watch as much tag team stuff as you can, especially youthful, athletic tag teams, not fucking King Kong Bundy and John Studd versus Andre and Hogan. That you're not gonna learn nothing from that. But Samoan SWAT team what's sneaky athletic. They weren't. They were two big dudes who you'd have thought, yeah, but they were athletic. Haku and Tonga Kid, the Islanders, that shit was ahead of its time. Young Stallions, just all of it, man. And the most important thing is to play the crowd. As a heel, tell them to piss off. As a babyface, tell them to fucking clap. If you do that, people will love you. And if you do that in a tag team, and you're in the corner, and you're holding that rope, and you're trying to get the crowd to get your partner to fucking fire to get to you, audiences will love you forever. They just want to feel part of it.
And also, if you go into tag team wrestling, Reflectionites, if you want to be a tag team wrestler, twice the pussy, or twice the ditty. But with that being said, we close on this greatest rivalries edition of the PWR podcast here at the Hami Media Group at Podbean.com. This was a very fun episode, TW. I love doing this with you. So, maybe I'll find another rivalry. Maybe we'll do another spotlight. Maybe we might do a movie. We might do episodic. Who knows? Maybe we might do another Saturday night's main event because I'm feeling like we foretold what was going to happen. But again, keep you on your toes, Reflectionites. Keep you on your toes. So, TW, give out those socials so we can get out of here.
Alrighty, the Pro Wrestling Coalition Network sponsors at PWC Network at podbean.com/probationary period. Kidding on that part. Hami Media Group is also at podbean.com and as well as channelattitude.com. Our X is at PW Reflection. You can find Big Ray Hernandez on all social medias when he's not hanging and banging in Vegas at Big Ray Hernandez. Every Wednesday, he's on the Next Level podcast live on YouTube. You can find me on X and Instagram at TommyWonder19. Snapchat is #Wonder. Facebook.com/TommyWonder. My other X and TikTok are at the Tommy Wonder. And then you can find Big Vito and Noel at the Big Vito brand on TikTok. You don't stop.
Yeah. Well, time is running out on TikTok because it will be banned in the United States very soon. But who knows? But anyway, you can find me on the Xer at PWS or PRF at PWS or Prof. And if this gets uploaded by 8-Track Brown, the slowest motherfucker out there, this will be on the PWS or YouTube network. Follow my brothers in arms, 8-Track Brown, the dirtiest of the city, the king of the reactions at the number 8, TRC Brown, and of course, the man of the Wednesday locker room, Billy Ray Valentine at Obi-Wan You Know Me. And again, next week, who knows? Maybe another rivalries? Maybe we go back to the movies? Maybe a what if? Maybe episodic? Maybe another spotlight? I'll keep you on your toes. And with that being said, I'm the Professor, and that's my tag team partner. I don't know if we're the Motor City Machine Guns, but I feel like we're more beer money. But that's just me. I feel like I'm Bobby Roode. That's James Stone right now.
We're the East-East connection. What are you talking about?
Well,
Midwest, East-Midwest connection. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I'm the East, and he's the Midwest. I'm the Professor. That's Mr. Wonderful, Dum Dum Doing Song, the Iron Stomach One, and the Detroit Rock City Universal Heavyweight Champion of the World. Woo! Tommy Wonder saying good night, and we'll see you next time here at the PWR podcast at the Hami Media Group at Podbean.com. Peace.
And if you're 45 and older, get yourself checked out with the colonoscopy. For real.
That's what Diddy said.